Welcome to Tipsy Topics with Tory and Tom, and we have a really fun Halloween program for you. But before we introduce our wonderful guest speaker, we want to thank Carson Brewery for their sponsorship and their delicious beer. And for the month of October, you have to give them a look because they actually have a beer made with bugs. So be sure to check that out. But while you're at Carson's, there's a few things you might want to keep in mind. So November 5th, they have a wellness night, how to keep your body and mind right during a pandemic. Guest speaker, Dr. Allison Bush, physical therapist, will discuss how to navigate cash, healthcare, and other questions. November 12th, they have the Dirty Book reading and other fun experts with local celebs and community members. November 13th, which is also Friday the 13th, there'll be a comedy show, and it's going to be quite scary how much you're going to laugh. Then November 19th, another open mic comedy session, as well as November 21st, they're going to have a comedy showcase. And November 25th is Brews Giving is back with 10 rounds of beer, bingo, and specials. Reserve your table starting November 1st, and more information can be found at carsonsbrewery.com. And the more attractive and better hair member of this T&T topic is Tom Lomberg, our no-name curator of history. And Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Tory. I'm only better haired on this special occasion where it's early 1980s. Tom making an appearance. If we were doing the actual reality, Tom, we'd have a lot of glare on the screen right now. So we're going with early 1980s for Halloween. It's great to be with you and with our special guest, Greg Hager, on this, what will be a really fun Halloween edition. In true title, Greg Mayhem Hager, as we will see. Greg has been employed by Willard Library for 27 years, 26 of those years as a library director. He has worked in public libraries for 37 years. A child of Appalachia, Greg spent his early years in Southeastern Ohio. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Rio Grande College in Ohio and a Master's of Science in Library Science. A Master of Library Science from Indiana University. Go Hoosiers! Greg is married to an Evansville native. He and his wife, who's usually known as poor Christina, have 4 children ranging in age from 12 to 24. I'm glad to say that Greg is a friend, and both of us had the pleasure on serving together on the board of the Vanderburgh County Historical Society, our other co-sponsor for the program. Greg, we're really glad you're joining us for this very special Halloween episode of Tipsy Topics with Tory and Tom. Before we get things too haunted here, it'd be great if you could give us a short background version of Willard's history to set us in context. So Greg, when we turn it over to you.
Sure, thank you. It is great to be with both of you today. Willard Library is a truly special place. And in fact, it's special to this entire state. Willard Library is the oldest public library building in the state of Indiana. And as far as Evansville goes, of course, it's one of the more iconic buildings in the city. But there's a whole lot more to Willard Library than just a beautiful building. The library was founded by a man named Willard Carpenter. And Mr. Carpenter was, well, let's not practice revisionist history. He was not always a very nice guy. He was a pretty hard-nosed businessman. He had headed from his native state of Vermont, headed west with hard-earned $12 in his pocket, and he kind of worked his way west. He worked as a tanner, a school teacher, and even a worker on the Erie Canal. And he came to Evansville to be in a partnership with his brother, and who was a dry goods merchant. And as I like to tell people, dry goods merchants, you can do all right, but Mr. Carpenter became very, very wealthy, and he did this through shady real estate deals and land speculation, like a lot of good millionaires of that time period. So here he is in Evansville. It's kind of a rough and tumble place, and he kind of ages along with the city. He kind of grows with the city, and became one of Evansville's most successful and prosperous men, even though he had lost a fortune and made a fortune again. There were several national depressions that he had to weather, and he overcame those. He was just a guy who knew how to make money, and he did. So by the time he didn't even want to build a library. He wanted to build a college, and he wanted to build a college for women. And he had a place picked out on Coal Mine Hill, or what we now know of as Wrights Hill. And he just didn't have enough money to adequately endow a college. So his good friend, Colonel Charles Denby, convinced Willard that he needed to do something for the community, and that a public library was something that Evansville was lacking. So Willard kind of thought that over and decided that was a pretty good idea. And it was going to be his library, and he was going to have his name on it. It wasn't the Carpenter Library, it was Willard Library, because he was kind of a strange guy. And he kind of arrived at this, I think, at a point in his life when he was probably trying to get into heaven. So he was looking at legacy and kind of planning for things. And he could actually be seen in in the late 1880s carrying brick and mortar up and down the scaffolding. I'm sorry, in the early 1880s. Unfortunately, he overdid it. And a man of his age probably should not have been carrying brick and mortar up and down the scaffolding on the library project. And Mr. Carpenter suffered a massive stroke toward the end of October and passed away in early November of 1883. So he never actually got to see the library open to the general public. But I think that he would like what we are today. We've been very diligent, I think, about honoring his wishes, and he was very specific about what he wanted his library to do and be, and mostly it was to be open to everybody. That was the special thing about Willard Library. Everybody was always welcome inside Willard Library. So, people of all creeds and religions and backgrounds and races, everybody was welcome. And that's something that I think is really special about Willard.
Yeah, that's great. And for those of us that research local history, Willard is sort of heaven on earth for us over there.
Well, thank you for saying so. We have a great genealogy collection. We have a really good circulating book collection. And we are a full service public library, and I think one of the more outstanding archives in the Midwest. So if you haven't been to Willard, I just encourage everybody to come down and check it out.
I would say doing local history exhibits over the years, Willard has been one of the greatest, if not the greatest resource through the Evansville Museum to create local history exhibits. And you guys have always been so generous in sharing with us.
Anytime, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah.
And not only that, I really appreciate the programs that Willard Library offers. So I highly recommend our viewers to take a look at that. I participated in the Valentine's Day program in card making, and boy, it was fun. And little Winston was there too, and he enjoyed it as well.
We really hope to get back to doing those in person again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, what we're here to talk about tonight is, I guess, whether you think this is, Greg, for better or worse, the most famous, the thing that Willard's may be the most well known for is a certain resident known as the Gray Lady. I guess since Willard Carpenter was interested in creating a college for women, we do have a very famous woman that resides there. So we think. And we're going to sort of walk through the Gray Lady and her history and who she is, and and where she's been around the historic building. So maybe if we move on to the next image, we can sort of, Greg, you can maybe walk us through Willard Library and
sure.
And the Gray Lady.
So this is actually the site of the first sighting of the Gray Lady, if you will. It's happened in the basement. Obviously, the basement of today doesn't look like the basement of 1937, which is when she was first encountered. She was encountered by the library custodian, and it was his job to come in very early in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and go down into the basement and stoke the coal-fired furnace for the upcoming day. So here he was in February of 1937, with his flashlight, and he encountered a figure standing in front of that very furnace that he was there to take care of. And at first he was angry because he thought somebody had this woman, and he'd be the first to say that this was a woman, had broken in somehow to the library. And then he realized that the beam of his flashlight passed right through this apparition standing in front of him. And he would describe this woman as wearing Victorian style clothing, lace-up style shoes, and some kind of a gauzy material that covered her facial features, so we couldn't really see her face. So he did not feel good about that encounter. Well, in the words of 1937, he shortly thereafter took to drink, and he had continued to have frequent encounters with the Gray Lady, and he just became very disenchanted because nobody would believe him. They were all just, people would just say, "Oh, it's that drunk guy that he's just telling stories." He is the only employee to ever leave the employment of Willard Library and cite as his reason for doing so seeing the ghost.
Now, the Gray Lady's very well known now. Back when he first saw her, was it big news? I mean, were people talking about this? Was this newspaper stuff, or?
I mean, in those days, I mean, people just didn't believe it. It was one guy talking about this. It wasn't until later, really, it was our children's librarian, Miss Margaret, who would years later really she had a lot of encounters with the Gray Lady, and really kind of talked about it more often and promoted it more often. A former library director had some encounters, and so it just started seeping into local lore and legend, and became more accepted, I think, that this was the case.
So as you mentioned, the children's department, I think if we move to the next image, we will see where those encounters were occurring.
This is the basement area that's right in front of the children's department, and there have been sightings in this area. Particularly, this was at one point it was a staff restroom, and the Gray Lady was known to enter that restroom and turn the water on and bang things around, and several staff members had that kind of encounter. This would have been back 1980, late 1970s, 1980s, somewhere in that time period.
When you're most vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, caught with your pants down, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and there were security cameras kind of throughout the hallways, so that staff members could see anybody that was coming into that area. And the Gray Lady has actually been captured on a number of those security cameras. Like, staff members have witnessed seeing a figure, and they do describe this figure as a woman, and that's been corroborated by many different staff members, and even in some cases they've seen her together. They've witnessed this apparition together.
Did people feel threatened, or are they just unnerved, or just startled, or?
Some people describe getting very cold. Some people describe their hair being touched. Often women have said their earrings have been kind of fondled. She's often accompanied by a strong smell of very cheap perfume. It's been described to me as smelling like taboo. I'm not really familiar with taboo, but that's what some people have said. Nobody's really said
that girl can't help you.
Nobody's really said that they were afraid necessarily. Some people have been bumped on the stairs, but not really pushed. It's more of a just, hey, I'm here, kind of a feeling. So, one of the employees in the 1990s actually saw her. He had a personal encounter with her, and he was pretty shaken up by that experience.
So we're still on the first floor. I think if we move to the next image, we'll just sort of move around here on the first floor where she's been seen a number of times, I guess.
So here we are. Yeah, this is the children's department. And this area, the children's department, is where she has been most experienced. As I said, a former children's librarian, Margaret Meyer, saw her very frequently. Now Miss Margaret's assistant, Helen, was not comfortable with those appearances. Margaret was a whole lot more comfortable. And at one point, when this room was being created in the way that it's seen today, Ms. Margaret claims that the ghost actually went home with her. And Ms. Margaret lived with her sister, and they both had an experience in their house. And they talked to their nephew Tom, who became concerned about their health. And so Tom, yes. So Tom came to Evansville, and while he was staying with his aunts, Tom had a Gray Lady experience. They witnessed the figure of a woman going up their stairs, and Tom actually became a believer after that. So at the end of the construction, when the children's room was complete, Ms. Margaret returned and stood in her kitchen of her house and said out loud, "The construction's over, you could go home now." And as far as we know, the Gray Lady did, and she's still here.
I take it Miss Margaret was probably a well-respected and balanced person that people took seriously.
My gosh. Oh yeah, I mean, people still come in, adults, older adults in some cases, and they have all these stories. And that she was a lot of people's first encounter with any public library, or any public librarian for that matter. I mean, she was really, I have so many great stories about her. She was truly something.
Yeah.
Very respected.
So Greg, as a library director, how would you handle a situation where an employee comes to you and says, "I'm not comfortable working here because of an apparition"?
We've never really had that happen. We had a young lady, and she was studying. She was museum studies. She actually ended up going to Texas Tech, but she was working at least in the summer. I can't remember if she was there longer, but she was working in the summer for sure. In the children's department as a library assistant, and she was assisting the assistant librarian, and they were doing what we call weeding, which is deselection of books. And in the far alcove that you can see, it's over, right over in that area. They were going back and forth to the desk, and you can see the desk right there, and the front door to this room is right there. I mean, so you can really see anybody that's coming in or going out of the room.
Is that the story room?
The story room is the room further ahead through that doorway that you can actually see.
Okay.
The door to the actual room is right next to that desk, basically. So anybody coming into the department is seen. Anybody leaving the department is very visible. So they had withdrawn these books, and they went back to that far alcove about 45 minutes later, and discovered every third or fourth book pulled out at a perfect angle all the way around that alcove. And the young lady, the very studious young lady, very intelligent, very much a skeptic, non-believer, pretty much freaked out. I mean, she really didn't have a way to explain what had just happened to her. So she began pushing the books back in, and yeah, she was pretty shaken up by that encounter. She didn't quit her job though, but she did go on and get her degree and work successfully in museums. So
interesting. So if we go into the story room, do I understand she's been seen in there also?
Many times.
Which is on our next image, I believe.
Yes. Okay. In fact, this area that this round rug that's in that room, is an area that has, I mean, this is a scientific fact. It has a high degree of electromagnetic fluctuation. Paranormal investigators who come in will say, well, that indicates a ghost. Other people say, well, that's just electromagnetic fluctuation, and that, I mean, that's part of the earth. I mean, that's a normal part of the environment. But it is a fact that right there has been a very active area, and a place where people frequently have a sensation of encountering a ghost. In the room itself, I mean, I've seen some strange things in this room. I have seen orbs captured by infrared cameras that other paranormal investigators have brought into the library to measure activity. An orb kind of looks like, imagine a weak beam flashlight kind of flitting around like a bird. And there were multiple ones of these in this room. Another paranormal group, in fact, they were at Willard last year, brought an SLR camera, and I don't know a whole lot of paranormal, ghost study jargon. An SLR camera looks like, when it produces an image, if we were on camera right now, we would look like stick figures. It would kind of show where our body heat was, and there would be an image of us standing or sitting, whatever we were doing. And so if you put it on a person, they're going to look like a stick figure. If you don't have it on a person and you capture an image, it's kind of creepy and it's weird. And that happened in this room. There's a dollhouse in this room, and the image they captured, they said, the paranormal investigators were like, what is going on there? What is this doing? It was very clearly an image of a child. It was a short human figure laying on their stomach playing with a dollhouse. That's exactly what it looked like.
Oh my.
So
Sorry,
also,
Lincoln came by.
so also in this room, paranormal enthusiasts are going to be familiar with these people. Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are demonologists, very famous in the paranormal community. Both now deceased, unfortunately. I think Lorraine passed away earlier this year. Ed and Lorraine actually visited Willard Library in the 1980s. They were out at USI, before USI was USI, for I guess it was like a kind of a psychic like a psychic workshop or something, a gathering. And they wanted to come and investigate someplace in Evansville that was haunted, and everybody said, "Oh, you've got to go to Willard." And the first thing Lorraine said when she came in to the building was, "Oh, this place is not haunted." But when she got into this story room, she said, "Oh yes, this is quite a feeling." And she went into a trance, which is what she did. It was her thing. And she just didn't communicate. She just stopped talking and not saying anything really. And Ed got worried about her and kind of brought her out of her trance. And what Lorraine said was that she had the sense of a younger woman, standing in front of a body of water with unimaginable sorrow, mourning the loss of a small child. Mm. And we know a little bit about the property that Willard sits on. We're sure that there was not a body of water on the property. It was Carpenter's Field that Willard Carpenter owned. And actually, for a while before there was a library there, that was the site of the circus that would come to town. And we know that in the 1937 flood, Willard Library didn't flood. It was kind of elevated enough that there was no flooding that happened. So we're not really sure about this body of water. The Erie Canal terminus, Tom, I'm sure you know that wasn't too far from Willard, and of course the Ohio River is not far away. So It could have been connected to that. But Lorraine Warren was convinced that the ghost, Gray Lady or not, had something to do with the land that the library sat on and not the library itself.
Can you give us a little context on who these demonologists are?
I mean, they are, okay, the Conjuring movies, Conjuring 2, Annabelle, those are all there, the Amityville Horror. They were the people that came in with the Amityville Horror House. So they're quite famous in the paranormal world. Probably the most famous. I don't think it's even fair to call them paranormal investigators. They really don't use equipment necessarily. They've documented and recorded a lot of paranormal activity over their lives.
When you're going through this process of the Gray Lady and paranormal investigators, is there anytime anybody on your board says, well, is this really, or are we really going to go down this road, or is it all everybody supportive of this and the efforts to?
As long as we keep it in good context. Look, we're telling a great story, and I'm not saying that this is true. I myself am a skeptic. When I'm doing these paranormal, I'm always there for the paranormal overnight investigation. I get a lot of grief from folks because I'm such a skeptic, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, show me your picture or whatever, oh okay, we're trying to explain something. Well, that happened because of this. This is a shadow. This is, this is dust on your lens, not necessarily, something that's paranormal. Libraries should be fun places. We want people to come and enjoy them. And if this is something that gives people joy and brings people in, then it's a good thing. We don't want to be just known as the haunted library, but we want to be attractive enough that people say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go in there and check this out and do this ghost tour. Go just see what this library is about. And hey, wait a second, they've got stuff. They've got friendly people. They've got a good staff. I might like to come back and check out books, which is what we really do. So it's a hook. It's a lure. And honestly, we've been on CNN. We've been on just about every paranormal show on cable television. When CNN's calling to talk to you about your famous ghost, that's good publicity. So, there's no way that CNN would be necessarily calling a relatively small library in Southern Indiana otherwise. So.
Well, yeah, that's great. Well, it's a great place to explore. And one of my very favorite places to explore at Willard is on the second floor. And I understand there was some sightings up there. And I also like it because the Evansville Museum has roots going back to the second floor of their Gray Lady aside, but a great place. So I understand she's not been sighted on the first floor, so we're moving up the stairs to the second floor to look around.
Yeah, and actually, on the way up to the second floor, there have been a number of encounters as well. But the second floor has been a place where, well, first of all, it was the place where the first ghost cam went in. So in 1999, I got a call from the new media editor of the Evansville Courier, and he said, "Hey," he was a friend of mine. "Hey, what do you think about putting a ghost cam in?" And I said, "Well, sure. I like technology, and people could look for the ghost on the internet."
So if we move to the next image, I think we see a camera.
You may.
Oh.
Okay. Here we are on the stairway. That is a ghost cam. That's one of our ghost cams. The first cam that was installed was a whole lot bigger and a whole lot clunkier.
Okay.
This was back in 1999, which was the early days of the internet. We kind of thought that cam would be up for maybe a few days. We put it up around Halloween. We thought, oh, it's just going to be, a few days, and we'll take it down and that'll be fun. Well, first the Associated Press showed up, And then we had a story in just about every major newspaper in the country. And then we started getting calls from, at the time it was ZDTV. They kind of did a whole lot of tech things and broadcast tech stuff. HGTV called us, the Discovery Channel called us. All of a sudden, this ghost cam became a national phenomenon. And in fact, on Halloween of 1999, I will extend an apology. Evansville Online was pretty much the server for internet service at Evansville at that time. We not only lost our cam, but on Halloween night, because so many people were trying to get there, internet service in Evansville went down that night because so many people were trying to hit that camera. And it just overloaded the capacity. It was just beyond that. So the cam stayed, and we over the years we've installed more. The Evansville Courier was a great partner. They've kind of backed off a little bit. We still have 3 cameras that are working, and as you see on this screen, this is one of them that's focused on the Stairway, where we've had some really great captures. People can actually capture a photograph if they see something on one of the ghost cams. And as you can see here, this was a really great capture. I don't know Marv, but wow, did he get a really cool picture.
So inside the yellow circle there.
And I can tell you exactly what was going on that day. This was as you can see, it was in August 2018, and it was a crazy day in the library, all day. Just strange things happening. The power was going out repeatedly. We had computers kind of browning out because of the power. Just some weird electrical experiences. People were kind of behaving strangely that day. We had a group, actually a group from Shriners Hospital that was in the process, I believe, of planning their 5K run that was working in our meeting room on the second floor, the boardroom. And none of their equipment, they brought their own equipment in. None of their equipment was working. It just stopped working. Brand new, nice stuff. Good laptop, they had a nice slide projector attached to the laptop. And one of their representatives came down and said, "None of our stuff's working. Can you help us? Can you help us out?" So I went up to try to see if I could, what I could figure out. And I looked at their stuff. I couldn't get it to work either. And I thought, well, maybe it's a cable issue. I took our elevator down to the basement, grabbed a couple cables of our cables that I knew worked. When I got back to the elevator stopped working. So I trekked all the way up. I mean, this is many flights of stairs, as you can see, all the way up, back up to the second floor, rehooked up stuff with the cables that I knew were perfectly fine. And nothing, still didn't work. I ended up having to just say, "Folks, I'm sorry, but I don't know what's going on here. It's been a little weird around here today, and apparently it's going to continue." So at the end of my work day, we were still open in the evening. I headed home at 5:30. The library stayed open until 8 o'clock. A veteran staff member working on the second floor. Our process is, at 8 o'clock at night, we shut down the lights, shut down, power things down. And everybody gathers on the first floor. We all go out a staff entrance together, just out of safety precaution. And we have an alarm system. We set an alarm because we don't want people breaking in. So they did that. They set the alarm, went out, and looked up and realized all the lights on the second floor were on. And the veteran staff member, this person closes down things every night. So I'm pretty sure I did that. So in comes the staff, turns the alarm off, goes upstairs, turns the lights off, back downstairs, resets the alarm. I have a timestamp on that alarm. And I know exactly when that alarm gets set and unset. And the alarm was set, and about 2.5 minutes later, this image was captured. And this image appears to me to be a female image.
Little mischievous stuff was going on there.
Yeah.
August 20th, 2018.
Yes.
Mhm. Wow. And don't you have an international presence with these ghost cams since we're
Well,
also
yeah,
on
I mean,
topic?
yes, and it was a whole lot easier. Through the analytics, you can definitely see that cam activity happens from all over the world. I mean, chances are, yeah, if somebody's coming into us from Kazakhstan, that's probably what they're doing, is they're looking at the ghost cams. And actually, we are huge in South Korea. NBC South Korea actually sent a news team to interview me about the ghost, and just kind of film around the library. And I never got to see the interview. I was so disappointed because I asked if they were going to dub my voice in Korean. I wanted to hear that. I just want to. I've never had that happen to me. I just wanted, what kind of voice are they going to use? I just wanted to see it,
Yeah.
But it didn't work out. But yes, internationally, it is safe to say that the Gray Lady is the world's most famous library ghost.
Oh, that's amazing. So up on the second floor, when we go through up the stairs and into the door to the second floor, there have been some sightings up there, as I understand. I think if we look at the next image, we'll get to one of those spots.
Yes, this was the encounter. Young man, a beautiful August afternoon, sunny. That's what I tell. I tell people who are disappointed because we have a long list of people waiting for to be able to conduct a paranormal investigation, and they always want to do it at night. And I'm telling people, the Gray Lady is most experienced during the day, because that's when we're actually here. There are people in the building to encounter her. The staff is rarely working at midnight. I mean, we do every once in a while, but not usually. So the greatest number of encounters have happened in fully broad daylight. So if people are looking for the ghost and they want to experience something, the daytime is really the best time, honestly. And this occurred to this young man who was a library assistant in the special collections department. He said that he felt compelled to step around the shelving unit. And actually, the shelves were just a little bit situated differently in this picture, but this is the right area. And he didn't say a woman, but he did say a figure. He came face to ghost with a figure. He definitely described the figure as having a gauzy kind of appearance over her face, their face. And he said they stared at each other for about 10 seconds. He felt an amazing amount of cold, he said. And I even quizzed him on this. 10 seconds is a long time to stare at somebody. It really is, especially if there's no communication happening. It gets uncomfortable. You'd be having a moment with somebody else. But he said, yes, it was 10 seconds, or it felt like 10 seconds, and the figure just kind of disappeared, just kind of disapparated.
So the common descriptions, it sounds like, of the ghost through the years.
Yes, and he was very shaken by that experience. In fact, the city historic preservation officer at the time was actually in the library department and witnessed this guy recounting the story and being just obviously visibly shaken. The city historic preservation officer said, yeah, he looked like he had seen something. It may not have been a ghost, but he had some kind of experience. So,
yeah.
And then, of course, this area is also a place where a lot of the cam viewers captured really great images of the Gray Lady. In fact, the Bayard Room, which is also on the second floor, is one of the favorite places that the paranormal investigator who has been to Willard Library the most really likes to conduct his investigation.
And if we move to the next image, we'll be inside the Bayard Room, I believe.
Excellent. Yes, this is a beautiful room. Unfortunately, right now it's filled with a lot of furniture because we've had to move some furniture to make people safe from the pandemic. But normally, this room is was really, it's the library boardroom. It was the first, and it still is, boardroom for library board meetings. And there have been reported encounters in this space. And like I said, Tim Harch, who was with the Mesa Project, I refer to Tim as being the the father of the American Paranormal TV show. He came to Willard Library in the late '90s and was filmed by the Discovery Channel for an episode called The Real Ghost Hunters. And he chose Willard Library. Maybe Willard Library chose him, I don't know, but he chose Willard Library as the place to show his work. And we kind of use him during the overnight paranormal investigation as our paranormal counsel, if you will. He comes every year. In fact, we have a group called the Willard Library Ghost Chatters, who come from all over the United States, and actually the leader of that group comes from Canada. And they come every year. Everybody is very disappointed this year because we are not doing ghost tours and we're not doing an overnight paranormal investigation because of the pandemic. And it was their 20th year. That was their 20th anniversary. So it was terribly disappointing for everybody, but hopefully next year things will be on a better course, and people can come back and have fun again with this legend. Because it's fun.
Yeah, we're so glad you could join us, since this year didn't make it possible for people to do this ghost looking in person. And if we look to the next slide, I guess one of the great questions is, so the Gray Lady, who is she, or who could she be? Is she alone? Does she have ghost buddies there?
Okay, so there's a lot of speculation about who is the Gray Lady. This is an image of Louise Carpenter, and she is the one of two daughters of library founder Willard Carpenter. And as the story goes, as the facts are, Willard Carpenter, when he passed away, he had a will, and he provided for his family, but he did leave the bulk of his fortune to support Willard Library. And Louise didn't feel like she got her fair share. Now, she and her father sounded like they were a lot alike. They butted heads a lot. Louise was married to a man that Willard Carpenter really didn't like. And in all fairness, Louise didn't like him much either. And Willard Carpenter would tell her, divorce that guy. I don't like him. He's awful. And she refused. She did finally divorce this man after her father passed away. So it was just two people, very similar people, butting heads all the time.
Yeah.
So some people say that the Gray Lady is Louise Carpenter because she sued the library and she lost. She lost the lawsuit. And some say that because of this grudge that she held against Willard, that Louise is the Gray Lady. Now, there are other people who say there does seem to be a female presence here. Some people say that if it was Louise, it would be a whole lot more of a menacing presence. So that's room for debate, I guess. I don't know why this ghost made an appearance in 1937. If it was Louise Carpenter, she passed away in 1908, so maybe there was some kind of delayed reaction.
Yeah.
She didn't even pass away locally. She passed away in Raynham, Massachusetts in 1908. There are other people who have suggested that that they've seen children, a younger man, an older man. Willard Carpenter's even been bandied around. Some people have even claimed to have seen a ghost cat. I don't know where necessarily all the legends come from. We've had paranormal investigators who have visited that suggest that there are up to 8 or 9 different entities in the library. And
it's a whole family affair.
Nobody knows who they are.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, we do have a museum mummified cat on display, so I apologize if our cat is harassing your library.
We're community partners.
Yeah.
We should write a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ghost grant. I'm sure we could get something.
for sure. Well, this is great. I mean, this is it's very interesting. Willard's a great place, regardless gray lady or not. And we certainly would encourage people to take advantage of what is a community treasure, a community resource, and visit Willard, take advantage of it, all it has to offer. I mean, the Gray Lady is intriguing, interesting, but Willard is just a great place. We appreciate its leader being with us. Now, Greg, I do have to share with you, down in our Rivertown, USA area, we had a strange sighting the other day. Tori, if we look at that, this at the Evansville Museum downstairs, and this picture doesn't look like it's been doctored, so it might be fairly...
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't spend, I was so startled, I turned tailed and ran, so I can't really report much, but I snapped a quick one on my iPhone.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Well, and let me just say, I think the Evansville Museum is one of our treasured spaces and places in Evansville. I mean, there's so much there. And, if people aren't taking advantage of going down and visiting the museum, you're really, really missing out on something.
And if we move to our next image, we'll show you the hours you can do that.
Right on.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's great. I mean, our two organizations have a real historical tie to each other. And we're just so glad that you could join us today. And we certainly appreciate your time. And we certainly appreciate the Vanderburgh County Historical Society, both of us on the board, but we're sort of in hiatus with the pandemic, but we appreciate their support of this effort. And I'll turn it over to my friend Tory to close us out for the rest of the program.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and spending your Halloween with us as well. And we definitely want to thank our beautiful sponsors, Carson, for the wonderful liquid elixir that they offer us to do these programs. So thank you so much and happy Halloween. Bye for now.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye.